that stuff out of the way. You're playing really slow, and you're not really taking any like drastic advantages with what you're doing. That makes sense. Like the Ling flood there, you should have most likely just outright won the game. Like it feels like the decision making is just a little off in those scenarios. You have really unclear tech choices. So I can see you opening 1/1 Lings because I think it makes sense. Like, so it's probably the most responsive opening out of everything else. But your second tech choice is just a little unclear. And with the amount of queens you have, you don't necessarily have the best creep spread either. You're just making Lings and queens for the sake of it, and you're just teching to something, but you're not really teching to it fast enough for it to matter. Something I've noticed with your ZvT and your ZvP, like even though you're playing very defensively with the amount of queens that you're making, you're still, it feels like you're really unprepared for attacks. Like you get really tunnel vision. Even though you know what else is out there, you get really tunnel vision. Like a good example of that would be the game with D-Boy, where he dropped and basically tried to YOLO Hellions at the same time. Like you saw the Hellions literally sitting outside on your creep, and yet you still pulled every single unit into the main base to defend 1 medevac and 4 marines. Even though that base is not mining, it needs a little less commitment, you're still committing to it for the sake of it. It feels like you're not really like thinking when you're playing, you just kind of do it habitually and autopilot your way through, which only makes sense if you play at a high enough standard where you've basically seen them all. But right now it doesn't seem like it's a good way to be. Yeah, so we'll watch the Drunken Boy game again, because I think that kind of shows the best example of where things went wrong in a lot of aspects. The overall bad habits. I think the Terran games really showed, like reflected the most on bad build choices and bad habits. But we'll go over them one by one. Opening one repel. I like the scouting, what you're doing here. I think scouting this way makes a lot more sense. Okay, so you held the first repel without taking too much damage. It's doing a lot more than it should, but not too much damage. Okay, so you haven't really scouted what he's doing. Like you have an idea because you saw the command center, but that's not an enough tell. So you see this medevac, you're chasing the medevac, see the Hellions sitting outside. The queens are kind of split up. This is good. This is a good start. Queens are kind of split up. The Reaper's doing some damage, not enough. The Marine's doing a lot more damage than it should. This, you can kind of see where things fall apart.
Basically, when the queen's loose in the main, I'm kind of unsure of what to do.
Yeah, because it's not really a size that you can engage into. That makes sense. Okay, so the medevac's down. So these are just naked marines that's not gonna do enough. The Hellions get out, get in, do a lot more burn damage. And here is when the game was over. If you click Control R, you can see how many drones you lost. You lost 18. You still only have queens and lings. You have no tech whatsoever. You have 1-1. That's about the only thing that's going in your way. But in every other aspect, you're behind. And the worst part is you still have no idea what the Terran's doing. So usually, something I recommend doing is, if you can, I know some maps are 4 players, so it's a little hard, but you always want to overlord scout at 4 minutes. Because that's when starport finishes, and you can actually see the add-on a lot of the times. You can see the add-on, you can tell if it's going to be liberator, you can tell if it's going to be medevac, if it's going to be Hellion. Like Hellion, medevac, you can tell if it's going to be hellbats, you can tell. That requires a lot more practice, but just seeing the difference between thing and add-on or not, whether or not if you see a starport, you should be starting 2 spores regardless. But it's a good tip. You should be scouting at 4 minutes. Because you have to respond by 5 minutes on what you want to build. Like the spores start at 5 minutes regardless, so like, just kind of totally unprepared. And yeah, this liberator follow-up is unprepared for either. Okay, so let me just give you a rough build order to follow. Have you seen the video guide that I made? I think that's a good build. Yeah. A lot of people can follow.
Roach Ling Ravager I saw, yeah.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. That's generally the grasp. I think I covered a lot of the stuff that I covered here. Mm-hmm. That's a good grasp of the build order itself. You can kind of assume which follow-up it's gonna be. But that's always a good start. But I'm gonna show you another build here. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to show it. Green. Oh, fuck it, yellow. Pass me the voice, please. This is kind of just a evil. Wrong replay. Sorry. So this is kind of like an upgrade timing that makes a bit more sense. I'm sure not enough people can actually comprehend the build order is doing, so I'm not too afraid to show what it's doing. You'll notice something that sort of does. Not necessarily the drone scout, just ignore that part. Because he only does that as a leverage 3 hatch. First of all, I just want to show you.
Would you still recommend for me going hatch gas pool?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Unless if you know that they're going to go CC first. Like on the arena, you can probably see it in time. Mm-hmm. But I still recommend hatch gas pool. You'll notice an evo timing here. You can tell from like this point that sort of doesn't take off gas. Mm-hmm. He takes it off very, very briefly, which isn't really necessary. This is what pro gamers do to cut corners, but you can keep in gas, and he makes a ridiculously early double lever chamber. So this is the kind of thing that you need to be doing. If you're playing Zergling based style, you always want to be ahead and upgrade. So the evo timing that he's going for is 4 minutes. If you keep drones in gas, you should have enough to make double evo, and you should have enough time to make a roach warren. Even if you're playing a purely Zergling based style, you still want to make 4 to 5 roaches, I think. Mm-hmm. Usually you want to go up to 5 because you want to defend 2 in the front, and you want to have 3 ravagers. Mm-hmm. And you always need, unless if you know what your opponent is going for, if you see like a naked starport, for example, or unless if you see a banshee, you always want to make 3 ravagers before 5:30. Because 5, I'm pretty sure 5:10 is the earliest timing that a liberator can get to your base. And you need 3 ravagers to deal with that. 3 ravagers. You don't want to deal with the queens because you lose too much mining time. Mm-hmm. You always want to have 3 ravagers handy to deal with liberators. So in this scenario, he doesn't, he's going for banshees. A lot of money spent stuff. Like he sort of also plays mostly Zergling based style. He doesn't make banings. And he doesn't make a lot of secondary tech choice units, but he techs in his speed that's unparalleled to what you're doing. You'll see in a little bit. So he already has the roach speed kind of needs a little bit of explanation, but this is a part you can ignore. So he makes an infestation pit almost right away, and he makes a macro hatch almost right away as well. As soon as the layer finishes, and his saturation is almost ideal. So the infestation pit, because you and sort of in some ways play very similar. You're both playing for a win condition. You're not playing to end the game with an aggressive push. You're not playing to defend an all-in and counter and win, something like that. You're both playing for a certain win condition. You're both looking to play defensively until you meet your win condition. And in the example of ZvT, the win condition would be ultralisks. Because it's very difficult for Terrans to usually counter that, even if they know it's coming. Simply because Bio doesn't deal with ultralisk at all. So he is maximizing the win condition by staying ahead in upgrades. You can tell this game he is in a pretty significant upgrade lead, to say the least. Despite the fact that Daishi over here went for quick 1-1, he's still ahead in upgrades. So this is the benchmark that you should be looking for, where you are ahead in upgrades no matter what. And with the addition of infestation pit, you're still gonna have 2-2, even if Terran pushes out a 2-2. So that's not ideal, but you're still gonna be, at the very least, you're gonna be even in upgrades when you have enough units. So what sort of is going for here is he made a ridiculously early infestation pit, and he's gonna play infestors. So that is his bridging unit to ultralisk, which makes a lot of sense. He actually made his style actually requires ravagers, but that's not necessary. If you make a few to deal with liberators, then it's okay. But he plays infestors and he makes a hive almost right away as soon as he starts pathogen glands. And he's gonna make infestors pretty soon. So the only real one advantage that Zergling has over playing Roach Ling is that you're less all in. Because I think Roach Ravager style is all in.
Yeah.
Because once Terran hits an inevitable 10 counter, you can't win. So Zerglings actually is less all in and it has more ability, so you have map control and you can deal with drops a lot easier. So if the Terran is playing a drop based style, he makes the Ultralisk Kevin first and then he makes the Infestors. Because he knows that Terran's not going to be moving out anytime soon. So now that the Terran moves out, he's actually going to have Infestors. And enough Zerglings in time to hold his push. Because he spends so much resources into just dropping. We can see here that he easily holds his push because he has an upgrade lead. 2-2 just finished during the engagement, and that was a relatively easy cleanup. And the fungals, you can use them to deal with drops, but it also stops the Terran from just dimming and aiming into your army. So instead of the ravagers here, you can play banelings as well. This is completely stylistic choice because I think Ravager or Infestor Ling is really hard to play. So you can make banelings if you want to feel a bit safer. And now that the Ultralisks are out, his win condition has been met. He stopped the 2-2 push, and he has Ultralisk. Sorry, he stopped the 1-1 push, and he has Ultralisk. So the game's pretty much over at this stage. So this is what I wanted to show you. Like, if you're gonna be playing a certain style, play with timings that make sense. My point. So you want to be going for, if you're going to be playing upgraded Zerglings with a lot of queens, so the queens are going to be the bridging unit until the infestors are out. So you're going to have the leverage to not die to a push because you have a lot of queens and you have a lot of Zerglings. And then the infestors are going to be out, so it's going to provide even more safety, and the Ultralisks are out and you won the game. So that is the steps that we want to take. What are the weaknesses of this specific style? The weakness is that Zerglings are trash against fire. The one way to cover that would be to have an upgrade lead. The Zerglings actually kill biological units. So the 4-minute evolution chamber timing, very important. You don't have to pull out a gas, there's no need. You can mine with 2 if you're really feeling fancy, but usually you can keep in gas and you're not going to float that much. the 4-minute double evo, and then a roach swarm at the same time as a evos, because you want to make ravagers. You want to make those 3, 4, 5 ravagers regardless, because they also help against pushes. They also deal with drops, but most important, they deal with liberators. You want to be making those ravagers. Earlier macro hatch, which would also cover the fact that you're floating a lot of money, which is very normal for the style that this happens. So the macro hatch problem you've already got covered. Get the infestors, get the ultras, and then get the upgrade. You want to meet the win condition first. The chitinous plating, ultras, then the upgrades. Okay?
Cool.
So that's generally what you want to be doing against Terran. And it's kind of important to be unit predicting when you're holding harassers. So I'll show you what I mean on can't really share screen with you, can I? Okay, so we'll resume from replay. We'll resume from replay. Okay, we'll just watch this again. I really wish I can control both players so I can show you what I mean, but this will do. We'll wait for first double drop. Then I'll let I just want to have enough units to show you what I mean. I'll climb in your area. I think 7:30 should be when the first drop happens. Okay. The day she actually had. Let me know the late. Wait for it to load up. Okay. Okay, so just click resume to game. I'm just gonna show you what I mean. Oh! You can see from here that the medevacs are in this specific position. Can you see my ping?
Mm-hmm.
The medevacs are in position here.
Yeah.
So you can potentially drop in 3 locations. You can drop here, you can drop here, or you can drop here. Sort of already has units in all 3 positions.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's not as relevant because queens can actually come down here and shoot it down, and this unit, these group of units can move up here.
Yeah.
And hold. So that's one thing. That's one important thing to take note of here. Little things like that make sense. And even if the drop is, because I'm pretty sure Daisy had another drop coming from this direction. Sort of overlord speed? No, it doesn't. I'm pretty sure he had another drop coming from this direction, but that's already can be covered for because there are enough units here. Yeah, and you can just move them down here. So if you I kind of resume at the wrong moment, but if you watch the replay, you can tell that sort of actually moves the units here preemptively despite not seeing this drop. He didn't see it. He didn't see it come, he didn't see it move, but he moves the unit there preemptively because of the simple fact that Terrans can attack from multiple locations. You don't need your entire army to deal with 2 medevacs. So you only really need as much as they're moving out with. He already has vision where sort of can potentially, where Daisha can potentially move out from. So it's not really that big of a problem. You don't need to group your units all the time. Until you see the main army push, I think it'll be best if you have your units kind of split up all over the place. So you can cover for the drop. And another important thing is this is something I call the ledge meet. Where the ledges meet, this is also apparent in maps like Ruins of Ceres, Dust Towers, Prion, and many other maps. Is where two bases are exposed to one drop location, and in this case it's here. Sort of kind of covers that with a spore. But another good trick to covering that is having your queens defend that specific ledge location. It's very advantageous to do that because queens can actually shoot down medevacs. So you want to have your kind of ranged unit defending those ledges. So even if you're caught out of position, you still have some time and some DPS to deal with incoming drops like that. Okay? Does that make a little bit of sense?
Yep.
Okay. Good stuff. Aside from that, I think that's really all there is to ZvT. It's really important to have vision. I think that's probably the most important thing. So, something that I sort of did into this game is have vision here. These are something I call the crucial corners. I pinned too much. Okay, and here. And here. It's usually the dead spaces where you can have free vision, and that's generally the part that a medevac will go to. So if you look at my overseer here, a medevac, if starting from that base, will take a route like this. So you can see where I've queued up. Take a route like this into the main base. So this is to avoid creep vision. So if you have army vision and creep vision covering these locations where you're gonna have vision anyways, and to avoid those vision, Terran usually send the drops in the edges of the map through dead space. So having overlords in those four corners is pretty crucial. So aside from the first 2 or 3 overlords, I'd say send the rest in those in the corner directions where you can see drops incoming. Because even if you have units pre-split, it's always easier to defend something if you know if it's coming. Yeah. So I think that's really... That vision's more important in ZvT than ever because you have to skip Mutalisk in a lot of your games because of liberators. So it makes sense to have... Like the vision is significantly more important. So you want to have... some things I've told you in the past, you always want to have vision where the Terran is going to be moving up. You always want to have vision on the potential 4th base. You always want to have vision in the dead corners where the drops can come from. And that's pretty much good to go because your army positioning matters so much more than before because Mutalisk are out of the game pretty much. They're out of the matchup. It's not a thing. Not a thing. Only really experienced player or stupid players will make Mutalisk. Why they're really disrespecting their opponent. So you want to have vision, you want to be ready. If you don't take damage, the Terran is most likely not going to kill you. And if they don't kill you, ultras are going to be out, and then you can kill the Terran. Okay?
Okay.
So that's just the core concept of the matchup that I wanted to go over with you. I hope that made some sense.
It did. I got some good notes. 4-minute evos in a roach war, and if you scout liberator with the 4-minute scout, 3 ravagers before 5:30 with 2 roaches in front. Having a clearly defined edge of upgrade advantage if going for a Ling style, using infestation pit and some infestor as a stepping stone to get to the ultra win condition. Queens defending the ledge convergence points, which you need to kind of familiarize yourself with those on each map. And anticipate the drops coming in, and then bearing in mind the crucial corners of dead space where you have free overlord vision, and then having lings on the map just providing vision of their 4th bases and their main move out lanes.
Yep. Makes sense. Okay, good stuff. Overlord stuff. Oops. I don't know, whenever I click different tabs, it keeps showing that legacy of the word loading screen, which is a little weird. Just keeps making you think the game's rebooting. Okay, so for ZvP, I don't really have any ZvP replays to show. But in general, the style you want to be playing with really heavy aggressive Ling is either going to be infestors or Hydra lurker. So you want to have a small number of Hydras, 6, 7, 8 lurkers to defend any type of really aggressive pushes, and you want to have lots and lots of Zerglings. And you want to be teching to ultras. So it's kind of similar to ZvT in a way. Like the Overlord and the Zergling vision still applies. I think it should apply to every matchup except for ZvZ, because you don't want to have those around for mutalisks to kill. But anything from that, it makes sense. It kind of makes sense what you're doing, but you don't really have a secondary tech to like back up what you're doing. So you want to tech slightly faster, so you're safer. And you want to tech, you know, the rock paper scissors stuff I was talking about back in HOTS. So if a Protoss makes robotics facility first, you want to make mutalisk. If they open twilight, or if they open twilight, you want to go infestors. And if they open Stargate, you want to be going for Hydras, interlocers. So the same kind of concept still applies here. So if they're opening Blinkstalkers, you want to be opening infestors, because you already have the ranged queens. You have the queens, you have the lots of Zerglings, and infestors to really lock out any type of really like pokey Blinkstalker play. And adept players kind of also get shut down by infestors. So what you're doing in ZvP is good, I think. Anyways, you want to be.
It's mainly about having a clearly defined stepping stone to get to tier 3, which I was just making queens and lings the whole time. I need some other gas expenditure.
Now you could see that your armies actually traded pretty evenly for the majority of those games. They traded evenly, but they didn't trade well. Like you were always just a little bit too short, and you end up losing all your full energy queens, and then the next wave becomes impossible to hold. So that's something that I've noticed. A lot of the early game aggression stuff can be dealt with just opening Hatchgas pool. And making 8 lings. If you see any adepts move across the map, which you should have vision of, not necessarily directly outside of the front Protoss space. If you have vision of that third, on a lot of these maps, you can usually just see them moving out. So like Orbital and Plus could be a very good example of them. Prion, kind of. You can kind of see if they move out on Prion. What else are there? Like Ruins of Ceres, there's like a ledge outside of the Protoss base where you can sit your Overlord. But you can have a Ling out there as well. Any time you see a lot of adepts coming, you want to be making units. And any time you see early game aggression, there's usually only 2 paths that a Protoss can go to. There's 3 paths. They can either take a really early third, which you can have vision of, so we'll cross that one out. They can be either going for Robo and do a War Prism drop into third, or they can be going for Oracle. And for the most part, lots of queens and maybe a spore can usually deal with that pretty easily. I'm not saying directly just don't invest like randomly into spores, but I think if you can't really scout what they're doing, you should be making a spore regardless. And if you see if it's a War Prism, then move it to the edges of your bases where the War Prism can come from. So kind of similar to dealing with Terran drops.
Yeah.
So you're making some use out of those spores. That makes sense. And ZvZ is kind of weird. I don't fully have a grasp on ZvZ yet. It mostly comes down to Ling Bane micro, which you're doing incorrectly. Well, not incorrectly, you're just doing it not well. But can you open up any one of those games again? Or I can just see Ling Bane micro a little bit more in detail. I swear to God, every 3 seconds in chat, someone asks who I am.
Yeah. Well, some of the viewers are helping out. They'll say, it's Juno. Who's Juno?
Who's Juno?
This is a different game, but it's another ZvZ that I lost, and I think there's quite a bit of Ling Bane in it.
Oh, you lost to Hans. Hans can't macro Ling Bane either. Oh yeah, I know him. He used to be on a team with me really, really long time ago. Really, really long time ago. Decent player. So I'm guessing this is just another Ling Bane game. Open for anyways. Only third. All the stuff makes sense so far. Okay. Lings pop. Good. You're making drones! You saw them pop! You saw them pop! He doesn't have a third! Oh no. Oh no. Put out of position. He's doing the smart thing here, but taking to roaches behind us. You don't have upgrades yet. He's probably just gonna roach bane you, as I can tell. Yeah, that macro. Like you're not playing cautiously enough, I think. So, by cautiously, I mean you're not taking into consideration things you don't have vision of. So losing the lings right there. You knew the lings could be up there, so probability should tell you that there could be banelings there. Most likely going to be banelings there. You don't have vision of what he's doing. So when you're holding a greedy third base, the first step of it should be a spine. No matter what, it should always be a spine. It should be 4 banelings, and you make 1 queen from each hatchery, and you pull them all. You pull the rest. And you want to be making those queens because you don't want to fall behind the lava. See, that's the thing with new age ZvZ because of the lava nerf. You always want to have additional queens, even though if you can't afford it. Even if you can't afford it, you always try your best to make the queens there. Because if you fall behind the lava, then you're not going to be holding anything. So over here, you definitely overdrawn. So you need to make the best of what you have. In this case, those drones are doing nothing. You're going to be floating money in a little bit. You're going to be floating a lot of money because you clearly don't have enough lava to support the hold for this aggression. You want to be, so in this case, since you're way overdrawn, you need to make 2 or 3 spines. And you're still going to be okay because you have vision. You know that he doesn't have a third base. You know that he doesn't have a third base, and if you hold this, then you have a gold economy, or in a lot of cases, you're going to have a third base economy that they can't catch up. And they're also not going to be having the third base lava economy. So they're going to be behind in lava, and they're going to be behind in drones. So even if you're, I think even if you're 8-9 drones, let's hypothetically say you're 8-9 drones behind, and you're still going to be okay. Because you have a third base, you have the extra lava, you have the spine for leverage, for any kind of aggressive play. You have the queens also for any type of aggressive plays that your opponent can do. And it's all good from there. Even if you drone after you hold the attack, or if you decide to tech after that attack, you're still going to be in a really good position because you have the extra lava. The extra lava is so important. You can see from here that he hasn't missed a lot of injects, but he's still floating 600 because he can't even support this economy on 2 bases. He has so much money. Like, this is unacceptable amount of money. He should have started a 3rd base or whatever behind this. But this kind of just gives you an idea. His natural is not even saturated and he can't even support this because he has no lava. So having the extra queens there, very, very important. I always recommend holding with queens because queens are a unit that you can continuously produce without the cost of lava. And spines are also very useful in this situation considering you're already ahead endurance.
Yeah, and spines are better against attacks without upgrades too.
Yes, exactly. And spines are also better because, well, it's just better at holding things, but they're good because you're the one with the 3rd base. You're not planning to put an aggression anytime soon. You're going to be in the defending position for the next who knows how long. So they help you at all stages of the game. So in this case, I think it's actually okay to overcommit on spine a little bit because you played so. And something I always recommend is making 8 lings, so 4 pairs of lings, and you send 2 of them for scouting. You want to have 6 safety lings at home, no matter what. Because the new age meta, how it goes is, if they decide to hit you with a very, this is something I call the inject timing, or the pump timing, is when the first round of inject goes to producing lings, and they put on a lot of pressure with Ling Bane after that. A new age meta where people can potentially save up lings, or where inject timings are significantly stronger, only because you have less lava to respond with. It should be okay for you to actually make those extra zerglings because you have a 3rd base. So if you actually don't see a 3rd base at an equal time as you, you're gonna be ahead regardless. So make 4 pairs. You want to be safe. Better be safe than sorry. It's actually like Ling Bane micro kind of feature in the house here. You're microing kind of well. You're playing too defensive. You're not like scaring away a lot of this Ling Bane with your Ling Bane. Another bad thing I noticed is you're not actually morphing Banes between engagements, so you morph them here, which is a little late. And kind of unnecessary because it's going roaches, but you go back a little bit. You're not morphing Banes between engagements. So the philosophy here is that you want to be holding as close to your base as possible. One because you want to be defending the queens that pops out, and queens are only effective on creep. Is common knowledge. And also you want to be defending the spine crawlers. You have no reason to exert aggression outside of creep. You're the one defending. So any kind of advantage that you have is lost because if you run up, you know, if you can crash some banelings into the lings running up because you didn't have vision or you didn't pay enough attention, a lot of the problems you have can be covered by just playing a little bit more defensively. If you're putting on aggression, that's a completely different story. So he's actually doing it really well here. You can see here, he's splitting the lings up into groups and he's morphing banelings into whatever lings that he's reinforcing with. So you can tell what I said earlier, like Mystic doesn't really have a lot of confidence in Ling Bane micro. So even if 1 or 2 banelings, he can't move forward confidently. So you want to be sending around, if you're really uncomfortable like micro and Ling Bane, and you're defending, you want to be sending around 3 lings and 1 bane per every hit squad instead of just ling after ling after ling after ling, which is suicide. If they're paying attention, it will be suicide. So you want to be sending those lings in small groups, so it engages their attention. Attention is a resource in this game.
Yeah.
It engages their attention to micro, and it buys you the precious time that you need. Like trying to deal with something as trivial as just a few zerglings and a baneling. But things like that are really, really important. Because you kind of held mediocre here. Like you're floating a lot of money because you have no lava. You don't have any spines, so you just kind of. I'm guessing you lose too much to the follow-up there if you actually watch the game. Yeah, so the roaches get caught out of position. That's good. Probably no need to waste the veins there. Yeah. So you're still ahead in drones, and you're still ahead. You're still upper base. Your follow-up response is good. And if you can't make spine directly onto the third base, which I should have covered, or like the most exposed base that they're most likely attacking, you want to make a spine slightly away from it and walk it down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
So
he focuses these down before they're done.
That synergizes a lot with the Ling Bane quote-unquote hit squad that I was just talking about, because it engages their attention and it buys you time to move the spines down, which is pretty important. It's pretty important because spines are useless if they're unrooted and they're moving down. They have Ling Bane ready to kill it. So, other than that, I don't think... Yeah, the pigs Ling macro thing, very helpful. But this is just how I do it. It's a lot simpler, in a way. So, yeah. He's doing like a roach bane follow-up here. If you had spines, you would have held that. Easy peasy. You still hold it, but you lose some drones. Now he has a base, he killed 10 drones. Has a slight drone advantage. Light drone advantage. He's looking to continue to by aggression. Probably not smart. Yeah, moving those lings out on the map a very good idea. Because you have spines and banes and roaches, you don't really need them. But the lings can just be active and ready to annoy them. But that's good. So he's gonna be doing I've seen TLO do this before. But yeah, they pull queens. If they pull queens, you pull your queens. General rule of thumb. And yes, yeah, you don't have any queens in response. The bad habit of not having queens in every hatchery at all times is kind of reflecting here. You did this a lot in HOTS as well. I think in HOTS it wasn't as drastic because of the economy and how lava worked back then. But now you want to be having at least one per hatchery. More is better if you're playing defensively and greedy. Yeah, you didn't even have any queens to pull here. Didn't have any queens to pull here. And yeah, it could kind of just fall apart to this. Alright, GG.